So have a big experience, have big feelings. Very quickly, that can move into, I don't feel good about my body, and these are all the things I'm going to do to fix it. So we're really moving around the rotary. And when you do that with people, they're so blown away because they all have their own unique rotaries, even though there's so much universality to that. So to bring that into what you were asking, so often what happens is when we have a relational experience, I mean, 99% we feel of eating disorder, of body image, spikes are related to something relational, whether it's, a micro moment or a bigger moment. Am I going to belong at this party or feel good about, this date? So as we start to track these things, this is the sensations that we feel in our body, because our nervous system is reacting to our experience, both with feelings and sensations. It can go so quickly from something I feel in my body to something I feel about my body. So when people often say things like, I literally feel like I'm gaining weight sitting here talking to you, my fingers look bigger, my, butt is spreading on the chair, whatever it is, that's likely something really emotional that's getting expressed through those sensations. And because we obviously all get these messages about our bodies not being right and that they need to be fixed, it becomes this really compelling way to try and manage that overwhelm of emotions and sensations. So that's my bridge. I hope that makes sense.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I think it's really being aware of those sensations, right? Because, in the
Yes.
nervous system, you're having the autonomic, the somatic, uh, the emotional and the cognitive side of things, right?
Yeah.
So being aware of where it's coming from and showing up for you is important because, yeah, you can sit there and be like, oh my God, I'm so bloated. I shouldn't have had that piece of cake. It's not the cake, right? Why are we making the cake the enemy?
Totally. Well, because it gives us something to focus on, which
Right. And
keeps that
blame
rotary
something.
going, right?
Right.
And
Right.
something we can fix.
Right.
Right? I mean, I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday, and we were saying, what if what's happening in the body is really this information that we need to be able to do whatever we want to do next? And what if we can slow that down enough to really translate it? So in our book, really starting to look at the sense, the words that people use, because they're really the words for the nervous system, right? So it could be buzzy, it could be tingly, it could be droopy, it could be scratchy, that when you get people to start to actually describe, my belly, my bloated belly feels like do. And this is one of my favorite things, is starting to see how these descriptors actually relate to other contexts in their life that they may not even realize,
Mm.
which
Mhm.
is really cool.
Yeah.
Can I give you an example? Would that
Yeah,
be
please
okay?
do.
Because sometimes I think examples are helpful. So I
Absolutely.
run a group for women over 40. And one of the women in the group, I think you'll relate to this, I think based on your age reference, but she was talking about being 14 or whatever, 14, 15, and wanting to look a certain way in her Sassoon jeans, which just made me giggle. I'm
Sassoon,
like,
you just dated us.
Sassoon. I know exactly. I was like, I think I remember those. Do
I
they
totally
relate to the
remember.
hair products? I don't even know. Anyway, but she was talking about how she just wanted her body to look the same. And I was like, well, what does that mean? So she was describing, she kept going with her arms, like, like a column. Like I don't want there to be any difference. I want it to be one long line.
Mm.
And then I asked her, what else was happening in your life at that time? And that was right when her mom, who was already quite mentally ill, really got dysregulated, and her dad had to come in and actually remove her from the home.
Mm.
So if you think about the language, she's kept saying, I just want my body to look the same. I just want all the lines to look the same. And I asked her, so when you hear about the same versus different, and what did you want to be the same? And she thought, oh my God, like I just went through the biggest change in my life that was terrifying. So if we think about that language, the same and change, starting to get people thinking about what words they're using, and especially when it does line up with these events in our lives that feel so profound.
Mm. Yeah, okay, so we're talking about the book as well, as part of your
Yeah.
process, and I really wanna mention it because we
Yeah.
haven't done it so much. Show it up too. So it's Body Image Inside Out, a revolutionary approach to body image healing with Deb Schachter and her co-author and very dear friend, Whitney Otto, who is a former
Yeah.
Olympic athlete.
It's a softback, and we've got all kinds of like exercises and
Great.
things you can do.
Love
Yeah.
that. So it is kind of a workbook
It
and
is,
a book.
absolutely.
Love
You can
that.
read it either way. You can read it for content, but if you want to do the exercises, and we always say, do which ones feel resonate for you. We have like Mad Libs where you're kind of like filling in, like, if my body were blah, 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 then I would feel more blah, blah, blah.
Now you're
Like
really
really,
dating us.
sorry, I know I
So
am.
we've thrown out
Fill in the blank.
Sassoon, we've thrown
I
out
know.
Mad
God,
Libs.
sorry.
And then at the end of this, we're gonna have a contest to say, how old are both of us? I
Exactly.
love my Gen X self.
Exactly.
Speaking about that,
Yeah.
you said women over 40. So we're talking about people who are perimenopause, menopausal, post. Where are you seeing that as most of the people that are picking up this book or
I'd say no.
okay.
Although, I think that's a really important audience. And we
Yeah.
actually, in the podcasts that we've been doing, we got so many requests from particularly dietitians who work with that age group, because that is an age where our body obviously maybe is changing in a variety of ways that don't make sense to us. And so I think that can really lend itself to having that important conversation about, again, what's happening in our life and how that affects how we see ourselves, especially when our bodies are actually changing, whatever that may be, whether it's weight and size or hot flashes or whatever it is. So yes, 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 that's a great population. But really, one of my favorite things about this book is anybody can read it. We
Mhm.
all have feeling, we all have bodies, and we all have feelings about them. And we have so few places to know how to talk about them in productive ways. So when I started to tell people about the book, like I was getting my teeth cleaned by my dentist, who's, he's probably in his 60s. And he was like, is it weird that I want to read the book? Like, is that? And I was like, that's awesome. And when we actually did a very early taping for or not taping, that's dating me too, of some video for an Instagram post. Whitney actually has her own podcast with another Olympic athlete called Untrained, and we were using her producer. And in the middle of our thing, he said, "Can I talk about when I went to LL Bean yesterday and I had to buy the bigger shorts, and they felt like a tent, but the smaller ones were too tight, and it was so awesome." We were like, "Please, can we talk about your shorts? This is the work." So everybody wants to talk about this; they just don't know how.
That's such a good way of putting it. Everyone wants to talk about it, but they don't know how.